The Titanic's final moments. On a serene April night in 1912, the RMS Titanic, a marvel of engineering and luxury, made its way across the North Atlantic on her maiden voyage. The pride of its era, Titanic was proclaimed unsinkable. With over 2,200 passengers and crew aboard, excitement filled the air as the ship symbolized human ambition and technological advancement. However, beneath the confidence and grandeur lay an impending disaster. By the morning of April 15th, Titanic would be resting at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, remembered not for her promise, but for the tragedy that befell her. What happened in those fateful final hours? In this video, we unravel the timeline, human emotions, and structural missteps that sealed Titanic's fate, all while reflecting on the courage and lessons it left behind. Titanic wasn't just a ship, it was a statement. Built in Belfast by Harland and Wolff, she boasted cutting-edge features for her time. Watertight compartments, luxurious interiors, and a grand staircase epitomizing opulence. At 882 feet long, she was the largest ship afloat. Her builders and investors marketed her not only as luxurious, but virtually unsinkable due to her innovative hull design. However, there were glaring oversights. Despite accommodating over 2,200 individuals, Titanic carried lifeboats for just 1,178, less than half of those aboard. This was a reflection of the era's overconfidence in technology. Such flaws would later prove catastrophic. The stage was set, a colossal ship, staunch faith in human innovation, and unshakable belief in progress. This combination, while inspirational, also bred overconfidence, an Achilles heel of Titanic's story. It was 11:40 p.m. on April 14, 1912. In the dark, frigid waters of the North Atlantic, Titanic steamed ahead at nearly full speed, despite receiving warnings of iceberg-laden waters throughout that day. Then, it happened. A lookout in the crow's nest, Frederick Fleet, spotted an iceberg looming directly ahead. His frantic warning, "Iceberg right ahead," came just seconds before the ship's helm was turned. Although the crew attempted a sudden evasive maneuver, it was too late. The iceberg scraped along Titanic's starboard side, puncturing several compartments below the waterline. The damage appeared minimal at first, no dramatic crash, no immediate flooding on deck, but beneath the surface, seawater began pouring in rapidly. The ship's designers had assumed the watertight bulkheads could contain flooding in a few compartments. But the iceberg's impact breached 6, creating an unstoppable chain reaction. The realization quietly rippled through the crew. Titanic's fate was sealed. She was sinking. At first, confusion reigned. Titanic was supposed to be unsinkable. Passengers and crew alike struggled to grasp what was happening. Their immediate surroundings didn't suggest urgency. The lights were still bright, the music still played, and the ship appeared steady despite its unseen wounds. The order was given to prepare lifeboats, but the chaos immediately became apparent. With far fewer lifeboats than needed, Captain Edward Smith and his officers prioritized women and children, leaving many men to accept their unfortunate fate. Yet even with this rule, lifeboats were launched half-empty as passengers hesitated to truly believe the ship was in danger. As the minutes ticked by, the water continued rising. Titanic tilted slightly forward, creating unease even among those who had initially dismissed the danger. Panic began to replace disbelief. People crowded the deck, desperately seeking answers or a way off the ship. Crew members tried to maintain order, but their efforts collapsed as the crowd's desperation grew. In the face of chaos and fear, remarkable acts of humanity emerged. The ship's orchestra, led by Wallace Hartley, played music on deck as the ship sank. Passengers heard songs of hope, even as calamity unfolded around them. Their final melody, legend says, was the hymn, "Nearer, My God, to Thee." The crew's bravery stood out too. Many stewards stayed behind to calm frightened passengers or assist them to safety. Officers worked tirelessly to load lifeboats, even as they themselves faced certain death. Chief Baker Charles Jucken, among the few who survived, is remembered for throwing deck chairs into the water to help swimmers grasp onto something in the freezing Atlantic. Families shared heartbreaking goodbyes, refusing to leave one another. Isidor Straus and his wife Ida declined lifeboats to stay together. Ida's fateful words, "We have lived together for many years. Where you go, I go," echo as symbols of devotion and sacrifice. These stories of courage and love showed the resilience of humanity, even in its darkest moments. At 2:18 a.m., Titanic's fate culminated in a gut-wrenching spectacle. As the bow plunged deeper beneath the waves, the stern lifted high out of the water. To onlookers in the lifeboats, the ship's earlier steadiness had now given way to a grim final act. The immense strain on Titanic's structure caused her to break into two. The bow sank quickly, pulling the stern briefly upright before it too followed, disappearing under the freezing waters. The once proud Titanic was now gone, leaving nothing but debris, darkness, and the cries of those stranded in the water. Survivors in lifeboats later described the shocking silence that fell after the screams of the drowning faded. It was a haunting end to a tragedy that unfolded in just 2 hours and 40 minutes. Only 705 people survived that night, primarily those who secured spaces in lifeboats. As survivors drifted in the lifeboats, they heard the cries of nearly 1,500 souls left behind in the freezing waters, cries that gradually faded into an eerie, unbearable stillness. Among the survivors, many recounted harrowing memories. Some described the moment of leaving loved ones behind, knowing they would never reunite. Others spoke of the guilt and trauma that lingered for decades. Survivors like Eva Hart and Molly Brown shared tales of determination, recounting how they fought for survival and urged others to row back to save those in the water, often against opposition. Their testimonies became vital in piecing together the events of that night and identifying the catastrophic failures that had occurred. So, how did the unsinkable Titanic meet such a swift and tragic end? The iceberg wasn't the sole culprit. A combination of design flaws, human error, and overconfidence contributed to the loss. Titanic's watertight compartments weren't sealed at the top, allowing water to spill from one compartment to another. Lifeboats, intended for emergencies, were seen more as formalities, resulting in insufficient numbers and inadequate drills. Furthermore, iceberg warnings received earlier in the day were taken lightly, and the ship sailed at nearly full speed despite dangerous conditions. These failures led to immediate reforms. Maritime legislation changed forever after Titanic's sinking, with the adoption of the SOLAS, Safety of Life at Sea Treaty, ensuring passenger safety through stricter lifeboat regulations, emergency drills, and iceberg patrols. Titanic's tale became a profound lesson on humility, reminding us of the risks of overconfidence in technology. The Titanic disaster quickly became ingrained in global consciousness. Movies, books, and exhibitions have immortalized the ship and its passengers. James Cameron's 1997 film brought Titanic's story to a new generation, emphasizing the human drama behind the tragedy. More recently, Titanic's wreckage, discovered in 1985, has become both a historical artifact and a solemn gravesite. The images of her hull on the ocean floor evoke a mix of wonder, sorrow, and respect. Titanic remains not just a shipwreck, but a symbol of human ambition and its vulnerability. What makes this story resonate so deeply, even over a century later? Perhaps it's because the Titanic embodies both the remarkable achievements and tragic flaws of humankind. It's a cautionary tale, but also one of resilience and courage in the face of overwhelming odds. As we reflect on the Titanic's final moments, we remember more than just the catastrophe. We remember stories of love and sacrifice, of ordinary people facing extraordinary circumstances. We remember the arrogance that led to the disaster, but also the humility and hope that arose from its ashes. The Titanic story is timeless. It reminds us not only of the fragility of life, but of the enduring human spirit. As the waves carry her whispers through history, we are compelled to listen and to learn.